Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest HR Tech Chat video podcast. We are super happy today to have with us Josh Rock, who is Talent Acquisition Manager at Nuss Truck Group. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks, Brent. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So we've been having a few conversations on the back channels, and as with so many of these, we thought, hey, let's do an HR tech chat. I know you're doing a lot of really interesting stuff. You joined a Nuss Truck Group recently. Maybe you could start off with, what is Nuss Truck Group all about? What do they do? And what is maybe your philosophy around talent acquisition? And I know you have a couple of initiatives that you've already been able to gain some traction with, and love to get into that too.
Definitely. Nuss Truck Group is a small truck dealership here in Minnesota and Wisconsin. We've got about 8 locations. We primarily focus on the Mack Volvo product lines, selling those products out to all different types of customers, whether it's long haul or agriculture. Selling heavy duty construction equipment to organizations around the upper Midwest. But then not only selling those, but also servicing them, making sure that they can still be out doing what they do, generating the revenue that their companies wanted, to take in, and then servicing their customers. Nuss is, like I said, family-based, family-oriented organization. It started with Bob, who's still with the organization. He's owner and president. We've got his 2 sons, Greg and Brad, helping run the organization below that, and then obviously a foundation of great, staff. I joined here, like you said, about 2 months ago. Previous to that, I was with Fairview Health Services, one of the largest healthcare organizations in the state of Minnesota. Huge change. I went from an employee base of 36,000 people to 350 people.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine the change in speed and barriers and internal culture and politics that went along with that.
That's really interesting. Maybe we could get into that employer culture thing a little bit more right now, because as you were describing Nuss Truck Group, family owned. I think the father still, so the founder, he's still involved in that. I think it was the 2 sons that have carried the torch more recently. What are the differences? This is definitely not apples to apples, because we're talking about 2 different industries and types of staff and everything. But from a super macro meta standpoint,
Yeah.
what are some of the differences you've seen in employer culture with a smaller sort of family-owned organization?
A guy like myself who comes from that very siloed environment to an organization where your hands all over everything. It's initially just immersing yourself into what's going on, where did things leave off, where are the successes, where are the failures, but then also endearing yourself to everyone as a whole. I mean, when you're that small, or as small as we are, the smallest things make the biggest impacts.
Mm-hmm.
Where when you're in a big organization, small things they're a blip on the radar. They're not even noticed half the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the smallest thing here can make a big, impact or, touch on a variety of people in a major way. And so just navigating that, getting to know all the personalities. I mean, I always go right for the gusto when I go into an organization, meet the biggest leader that I can meet. Usually it's the CEO or president. I did it at Fairview. I did it at Nuss. Connecting with those leaders right away, even though I may not interact with them on a regular basis. But just, going in and saying, hey, part of the family, let's do this. Here's my vision. And, when you talked about that a little while ago, for me, it's always about engagement, whether it's the leaders and the staff at any organization, but also the candidates, finding a greater way to engage, looking at those successes and failures and how we've done that in the past and building upon it. So navigating can be, a variety of ways to go with that.
So a couple of things that come to mind. So one thing with that, you made a great point around, a small organization, small things have a big impact, or people notice them, and it can it can go in the, what I'm gathering from that is it can go in the right direction or the wrong direction, but they can also be stopped
Yeah.
soon, right? Whereas at a large organization, um, a small action that may not be good goes unnoticed. And
Yep.
so I'm wondering, how much of it is that the small action doesn't affect a large organization versus it may have a far-reaching consequence that the large organization just struggles to doesn't has a blind spot just by sheer size. It doesn't know what's happening.
Yeah. When we talk about that, some of the projects that I've worked on recently, it's I usually will go in and say, okay, internalize things because in a big organization, you may not need certain parts of support, but in a small organization, like you said, those ripples can get picked up pretty quickly. In our team, a small change, I had to involve not only my IT support person, but their leadership because they wanted to work, really concern themselves with the security of our information and our data. And after I showed them what we were doing, just a quick conversation, we got that adoption really easily.
Yeah.
But the red flags go up really quickly when you're that small. And so it's understanding that and being able to pivot easily, not taking anything too grandiose or take offense to anything, because you're learning their style as you're also making these changes at the same time. And for me, I roll with the punches. In some of these cases, it's like, oh, you know what? Great. I'm not going bull in a china shop like I normally would. I'm going with a little bit more kit gloves until I understand how things are really done in this new organization and whose hands do I have to shake before I can move some of these things along.
It's about agility,
Hmm.
that agility to really uh, uh, respond
Hmm.
appropriately and quickly to a need. I want to go back to engagement because that's you mentioned that being a huge part of your philosophy and in talent acquisition and that I mean that to me makes a lot of sense, right? You want to be plugged in to the entire organization. So let me share with you some not ever having been a talent acquisition specialist in any way myself, but just from observing it over the course of my career. One of the things that really strikes me is that a talent acquisition, if you're a talent acquisition, you are like on the bleeding edge of the organization. You are an emissary, if you will, of that employer's culture. Of you are the representation. Everything sort of is concentrated into you
Yep.
as a representation to that outside external person who may eventually become a member of the organization and what the organization is all about, what kind of organization it is.
Hmm.
So what I'm getting from this idea of engagement that you're talking about, being plugged in with everybody in the organization, is that you want to understand that as much as possible, so that when you're going out there or working with the folks on your team as they go out there, they they might be great people, but if they're projecting just themselves as opposed to the organization, presenting just themselves as opposed to the organization, that those potential new staff get maybe a skewed understanding or view of what the organization is that they might be joining.
Yeah, you got to be really cognizant of the microcultures. You know,
Uh,
um, you gotta know what for us what a specific location is going to be like. Your brand isn't as grandiose as my old organization. When you've got 36,000 employees and 12 hospitals, 56 clinics. People understand what that is ahead of time before they're going in. When you're a small organization, they may not know that as well, and so you need to through an intake with the leaders ask the right questions to get a handle of what that individual location microculture could be, so that way you sell that or put the candidate in another location that accentuates what they're looking for or that team. And so that I love doing that. I love getting in and asking those questions of those leaders, of the staff. I'll ask the staff, why do you keep coming back here every day? Why do you like the employer or the leader, the manager that you have? So ask those questions so then I can take those bits of information back and relate them to the candidate so that way their excitement grows about working or potentially working at that location underneath that leader and working with that team. When you can layer all those things in there like that, it makes them accepting or saying yes to the deal that much easier.
Well, they can relate. Also, they
Yeah.
can relate to something. It's not just this sort of vague blob of an idea of here's another place I'm going to go work for. It's you really understand what you're getting into, and it's not so much being as specific as possible, but just being able to paint a picture for the candidate to relate to. How is COVID and has COVID been an impediment to that? You knew the COVID question was coming.
Yeah, Brent. Unfortunately, COVID is immersed in my world like crazy. Unfortunately, right now, I've got one location that has about 30% of my staff out,
Wow.
whether directly with COVID or quarantine because of a close contact exposure inside the workplace or outside. Um, and actually, we're lucky to hear good news today that one of our employees left the ICU yesterday and is
Oh,
back
that's good.
resting. We've just had it just in spades lately. It's just it not necessarily coming from work, but from the outside in. And it's just impacted us, and so we need as many, being a small company, we need as many hands on deck as we can have. We can't afford to have the State Department of Health shutting us down because we have such a high volume of people at that location, out of work. It's just a lot. And, there's three of us in HR, myself, my director, and our HR manager who does more of the employer relations. Those two are working in tandem feverishly to maintain, updates with the Department of Health, leadership, the employees, so they know what they need to be doing. I'm going in and spot checking locations, making sure that we're going through compliance. Obviously, pulling people aside and having crucial conversations about why they need to wear their mask in certain places inside the locations. And so we're bending and flexing from a recruitment standpoint. It's not hurting us at all.
Mm.
I'm still able to, maintain engagement with candidates, keep leaders, moving things forward with their open positions to, continue to find those hires. So from a process perspective, it's not hurting us at all. It's just the inside, making sure that, our staff is able to work and deliver and continue that quality of work so that our customers and our clients expect.
What kind of technologies are you using for communication with staff and at the various locations and
Oh, they're a little old school here. Carrier pigeon tends to be the most prominent tool. No, it's usually just corporate email, and face-to-face conversation. We're not big into technology here. Like we were talking about, you and I've had some great conversations on the back channels. We just implemented some new text messaging technology for us to engage candidates. Um, and I was a little worrisome about what the adoption would be like from leaders in the organization. And once I showed them, how it works and what we did on my other organization, and how simple it could be,
mm,
they gravitated towards it quite quickly. And then the question of cost comes into play,
uh,
and we implemented Emissary,
yeah.
which is really easy. They're easy, great guys to work with. For us, it was $1,000 for 1 year to implement text
Wow.
messaging technology. And for us as a small organization, I don't need something as robust as say Text Recruit with iCIMS, which is going to cost you 20 plus grand to
Hmm.
implement when we're a 350 base employee company, and I don't need to spend that kind of money. I can use that towards other tools. And so Emissary was a great middle ground for us. It got us the accessibility that we needed. I'm able to utilize the detail in covering myself for reporting purposes. So it really covered a lot of bases for us. And it was simple. It was a couple conversations, installing a Chrome extension, and away we went.
Wow. So that's super short money
Yeah.
and for something that's from what I gather has been a good quite a boon to your recruiting efforts. It's helped with efficiencies and all that. So a couple of things, that's almost, it's such a small organization that you work for, that that's sort of a collective decision there. But theoretically, that's almost a sort of a line of business, what we would say, unilateral decision that could potentially be made in a larger organization on getting a solution such as Emissary. Can you just describe a little bit more in terms of how Emissary has made your team more productive in terms of recruiting?
Yeah, actually, I had a conversation about this yesterday with another vendor. I was talking with the guys at ZipRecruiter, our account representative, and he's talking to me. He's pushing the envelope, right? He's like, you need to increase your job slots, and you should really be doing the invite to apply. And I said, why would I invite them to apply through your technology when I'm already viewing their resumes and I see their name and email and phone number, and I can call them directly and send them a text message directly from me engaging them versus an invite via ZipRecruiter. Well, you know what, this, that, and the other, and it gives me his normal sales song and dance. And, having been an HR tech vendor for 10 years prior to becoming a recruiter and recruiting manager, I know those techniques. Yeah. And it's hard to sell a salesman. It really is. And all of my vendor partners, I always tell them, like, guys, I've been on your side of the table. I did it for 10 years. So good luck. But I'm like, I'm looking for quality partners. You don't need to sell me. And they're usually pretty good about that. But in this case, for us utilizing that text messaging technology, what it does is when I'm looking at hiring diesel technicians, maintenance guys, they're not sitting on their email all day. No. They're not sitting on their phone all day. And so, hitting them when it's convenient for them makes us easier to get a hold of, when they've got time. And so a voicemail and a text message is a perfect complement to this demographic of candidates for us. And so, by utilizing our ATS, we use Dayforce, Ceridian, and I can click on that, a record. I can implement their resume right in from whatever technology I'm pulling this resume from, and through Emissary, send a quick text message on a follow-up to a voicemail. It's super simple. I mean, I don't know the methods of our past recruiter, what they were utilizing to engage, but we're seeing already a drastic increase in engagement from candidates, even if it's just saying, hey, you know what, I already have a job, but thanks for letting me know about what Nuss has. We're getting all of that information. We're able to retain those records, load them to their candidate file or pipelines for later on. We can tag those resumes for campaigns. There's so much accessibility we have in a really, really simple decision-making process for us on this one.
I am really struggling to see what the rationale would have been to add another variable to the process with ZipRecruiter, and that's no knock against ZipRecruiter, obviously, yeah, but I mean, you have Dayforce in place for the ATS and the emissaries. Obviously, it's somehow integrated there, so you're able to, and yeah, and you're right. Some demographics of depending on the industry you're in, right? Some demographics, it's going to be, you're going to have a tough time getting them to a computer or to spend time doing something through an app that they are not familiar with or they just don't want to be bothered with. Seems like this has been a real so that if I were to there's a lot of takeaways here, but one distillation would be that there's a you can streamline engagement. If you can streamline the process, then your engagement will be, this is a better way of putting it. If you can streamline the process, your engagement will rise. And going back to your philosophy of engagement being so important, I mean, without that level of engagement, they might, their job opportunities are not exactly, scarce. That you have competition out there. It's not like a maybe a white collar worker looking for some, a different type of of role where that person, where the candidate has to kind of show initiative and this sort of thing. It's very much in the other direction. Yeah, that's really interesting. Speaking with your friend Nicole Roberts over
Yeah,
at MVAH Partners, and
my good buddy.
yeah, she's great. And we did an HR Tech chat with her, and there's a loose analogy or a similarity here. So she has a situation where they have, I think it's 7,000 units across 15 states of affordable housing that they manage. And so they have employees. So this isn't recruit. Well, excuse me. Yes, this is recruiting. So they have to recruit for these different locations.
Yep.
And so they have this geographic sprawl anyway without COVID-19 happening. And so they need a way to make it as easy as possible for these candidates to like, for instance, a screen interview or whatever.
Yep.
And so what they did is they deployed a point solution for video interviewing, Spark Hire,
Yep.
that totally solved that problem for them. And so they don't have to, obviously high value candidates who are already employed somewhere else, trying to move them over. Last thing you want to do is make them leave their job for a certain amount of time during the day to go to a location to do a face-to-face. And even without COVID happening, and now it's a necessity to do a virtual one now. So all sorts of streamlining in how that can increase your volume of hiring if you're growing too.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears here.
Sure.
Just because I'm looking at the time, I want to make sure we have time to cover this. Is you also had something around employer culture that you were implementing, and an initiative that's gained some traction already, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of share that, because I'm curious about what that exactly is all about.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously, videos and culture videos and video, advertising, those types of things have been a staple for the bigger organizations for quite some time. They've got bigger budgets and, bigger production, accessibility, those types of things. And for somebody like us, it hasn't been a paramount idea. And so we've got, marketing agency that we partner with, small group here in Minnesota. And, I started talking with them about some of the things that we've been working on. How do we better promote us? Because I need the promotion of Nuss to generate applications and candidates. And while we're talking about that, the idea of promotional videos came up. And I said, so why aren't we doing ones when it comes to employment? We need to show, why people should come work, for Nuss, show diversity. We're trucking, right?
Mm.
And so we're predominantly crotchety old white dudes, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Right.
But we have diversity. And one of the big points of pride for Nuss is that we're a back-to-back Department of Labor Hire Vets Gold Medallion Award winner. We're the only transportation company to receive that award from the Department of Labor. And that's huge for us. We take pride in employing and retaining our military veterans. And so why aren't we talking about it? And so that was a point of discussion. Why aren't we doing a video about why folks that are coming out of the military should come work for Nuss? What about other folks in other areas? Your diversity areas. Minneapolis has a large Somali and Hmong community. Where's our marketing, our culture videos regarding those groups coming to work for Nuss?
Mm.
And resounding leaders are like, yeah, you're right. We haven't done that. We need to do more of that. And so we were going to meet the other day, and I had to, push it back because of meeting with one of the VPs. And, we sat and we talked about all of these ideas of, what kinds of videos we want to produce, and started to put together, location ideas and staff that would be involved, and how we could layer in all of these different aspects. And you could just see him just turning the light bulb. He's like, yeah. He's getting excited about the entire thing. And in the end, I said, okay, the next step is to start mocking up where the intersection of content is going to be, because I want to keep it, as inexpensive as possible, but get maximum value out of it. And I said, so where do you want me to bring you back into the conversation? He goes, you've got exactly what you need.
Mm.
Run with it. He goes, when you feel that you need me to look at something, send it to me. But until then, go. So
Wow.
I've got the buy-in that easily, and the marketing, our marketing duo, we're gonna reconnect in a week and a half, and we're gonna start on this project in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Start working with the videographer. Start looking at our casting. Bring in look at wardrobe and makeup. Look at our locations we're gonna work on. All of this literally out of 2 conversations. I love it. I mean, my old organization, it would have taken 3 months to get this far. So when we talked earlier about how small or how certain things can really impact and cause issue, and certain things in a big organization won't. In this case, this is a big piece, right?
Mm.
And it got quick adoption
Yeah.
and quick
Yeah.
embrace by the leadership. So I love it. I feed off that stuff.
That's fantastic. I mean, congratulations. I mean, that's a vote of confidence, and it is interesting, like you say, that initiative. So let me put this. So things that happen that are small that might not be good for the organization, just inadvertently, get noticed quickly in a small organization and sort of tamped down or stopped before they become an issue, which is great. And also large initiatives that have the potential to really make a difference for the organization and amplify its already close-knit positive employer culture. Those things, because of the agility of the small organization, those be those can be implemented, can be ideated, and then actually implemented very quickly. There's very little sort of ramp up time, and that and you're right. This all has to do with the size of the organization. I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent, but there, and I'm not an MBA guy, but I'm sure there's
Me neither.
but
I don't even have my degree yet, Brent. I'm over 20 years into my career and I don't have my degree. I use it actually when I talk to the 30 plus colleges I visit every year. They're like, "Hey, what kind of degree do you have?" I'm like, "I don't. I haven't even finished it yet." But yeah, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take the MBAs to pick up on some of these things.
yeah, and you know what? That's another conversation. I mean, I've heard from probably just as many people have told me, yeah, you need your MBA, and just as many people said, no, don't get an MBA. So I don't even know what to think. I'm not going for another degree at this point, though. I'm through with that.
I got to
But
finish the first one.
yeah, it was. I got yeah. I wish I hadn't got one, but sometimes. But I'm being serious. But anyways, it's this idea. But there must be case studies out there, though. I know there are. I've heard about it. Heard about them on the periphery of this idea where larger organizations can become more agile and act like smaller organizations in some ways. And this is a bit of a tangent, but it would be worth looking into, I think. I mean, when you really think about it, this we're getting into sort of a boiling the ocean change management conversation right now.
Mhm.
Um, Digital transformation as well. Now, in terms of those videos, I know we need to wind down here, but I'm curious in terms of the videos. I mean, are you folks just going to kind of use off the shelf stuff like your smartphones and YouTube and this sort of thing, which there's nothing wrong with that? Or are you looking at some sort of a platform to do this with?
Well, we're still in the discovery mode of how we're going to deploy it. A lot of it's going to be, website based, but, I'm going to multi-purpose things for things like, mobile accessibility for, on the career pages, for Facebook, YouTube, because we know that different audiences digest that information or that content in different ways. And the marketing duo and I've already seen that. I've already kind of eyeballed, how we're going to look at that. but it's going to be, partnering with those in the production side on working with us to accentuate that. We're obviously going high volume, or high quality. We're going 4K cameras, and we're using drone footage and that kind of stuff already. We already know we have some of that already in the can. And so it's just going to be continuing to use that, because I don't know if I'm going to get another bucket of funds like this to do this again, for the foreseeable future. So it's going to be, being very thoughtful right out of the gate, and looking at the different elements and how do we do this the right way the first time.
Yeah, yeah. Um, One area that we haven't touched on, which is very exciting, and that is compliance. and and I almost am not sure if I want to have this as our last topic for today, but there probably is.
Leave it to lawyers.
I mean, working for a trucking company, right? In hiring for that, there must be like a huge ball of wax compliance-wise that you're dealing with.
We keep it really simple. Obviously we do the normal background checks, the DOT checks. We've got random drug tests if somebody's a driver. Those elements. Now, lucky for me, as the talent acquisition manager, once they're hired, they all get pushed over to this other bucket, over to my employee relations manager, who is Megan. She takes it from there. I don't have to. I'm the puppies and rainbows guy. I'm the one that gives birth to careers. But granted, there are only three of us in HR. I know I've got to keep my eye on it and make sure that I'm being very cognizant of the staff that I bring in, and their perception of what these, compliance, regulations are like. So that way they stay on the up and up with us and we don't have to worry about it. But yeah, we do have to make sure that we're compliant with these things and safety protocols and all that, because of, these trucks going onto, large construction projects or mining projects. We need to make sure that we're adhering to these things. The trainings are kept updated by our technicians. So yeah, we focus on that. We do a lot behind the scenes away from the employees, so that way they can focus on doing the job and we maintain that compliance. And then when things need to come up, we share that information and make sure that they're given enough time to complete it so we stay compliant. But yeah, we're very thorough, and the good thing about that for us is it starts with our director. My boss, Joe, he came from Burlington Northern Railroad. He knew a lot of that same compliance from his previous industry. And how do we make it easy for our staff and our leadership to manage and deal with, by focusing that through him? So it works out well.
Fantastic. Great. That's great. Hey, thanks for joining us today,
Totally.
Josh.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I know you have your son is doing a hockey tournament this weekend, so good luck with that. Have
Thanks.
fun. Yeah.
That's fun. It's fun watching, we all work hard, play hard. It's fun to, put it through the kids and watch them excel in the activities that they have fun with. So it'll be a blast. It's his first road tournament, so he's really excited.
Fantastic. Well, I hope they do really well. I hope they win all the games.
Thanks, Brent. I'll share that with him when I see him here in a little bit.
Yeah. Great. Well, have a great weekend, Josh, and we'll talk again with you soon.
You got it. Take care.
Fantastic. Bye-bye.